Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all to the 16th lecture on the course Management, Organizational Policies and Practices. Before we start with the lecture contents, I would like to give you a recap of lecture 15, which was on personality traits and its implications for the different attitudes and behaviors occurring in the organization. So we started off with what personality is and what are the personality traits, how the personality is measured. We discussed two different options which are generally used to measure the personality. One is the self-rated study, in which the self-reports are collected from the individuals whose personality is to be tested, and the other option is the observer ratings, in which you take the ratings from your co-workers or peers or your supervisors to measure the personality of the individuals. And we discussed that although the results of the two measures are highly correlated, but it's better to get the observer ratings because of the biases that occur in the self-reported data. Then we had a discussion on the different determinants of personality, and we saw that how the heredity, the situational factors and the environmental factors, they play their roles in forming or in determining the personality of the individuals. But we discussed that it is mainly the heredity that determines the personality in mostly, or that is a major contribution in the formation of individuals' personality. Then I gave you a few very interesting examples on how the twins that were living apart from each other for many years, how they had amazing similarities between them still. Then we had a discussion on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is one of the oldest indicator to measure the performance, which was consisted of 100 items, and we saw that how this indicator identifies 16 different personality traits of the individuals, and how the various combinations of these traits, what are the consequences, and what kind of personalities emerge as a result of the various combinations of these personality traits that the individuals can possess. We also had a discussion on the limitations of this indicator. But we also saw that how this indicator is very widely used. It is very wide in scope, and it is used by many multinational organizations and many hospitals all over the globe. We had a discussion of this Big Five personality model, which has gained immense popularity, and it constitutes those 5 personality traits, and we saw that how those personality traits are distinctly and individually related to the different individual and organizational outcomes. Then we had a discussion on the other major personality traits and outcomes, and we saw the individual relationships of each of those personality traits with the outcomes. We had a discussion on the core self-evaluations, that how do the individuals evaluate their own selves, their own capabilities, their own capacity to perform, right? And whether they are positive about their capabilities, or whether they are negative about their capabilities. So these are their own judgments about themselves, and these core self-evaluations, it is basically subconstituted into two parts. One is the self-esteem, and the other one is the locus of control. And we discussed that how the individuals with a high internal locus of control, they behave differently from the individuals with high external locus of control, right? And how the outcomes differ for these two different types of personalities. And then we had a discussion on a number of other personality traits, such as the self-monitoring, in which the individuals, they really adjust themselves to the situations, and they depict different attitudes and behaviors as per the sensitivity and need of the situation. So they really do this situation analysis, and then they mold their behaviors accordingly, right? And we saw that these individuals, they perform better, and they gain better evaluations from their supervisors. They have higher chances of promotions, higher chances of salary increases, and better opportunities of and better prospects of career success both within and outside the organizations because of their skills to monitor as the scan the situation and to act according to the situation compared to their low self-monitoring counterparts who are who remain the same, whose personality remains constant irrespective of whatever the situation is, right? So then we saw that how the individuals and the managers, they vary in their risk-taking propensity. Some individuals, they are more propense to take high risk decisions, and some managers, they don't take high risk, they're risk averse, they don't take high risk decisions. And we saw that how with respect to the large and small organizations, and how with respect to the entrepreneurial capacities of the managers, they differ in their high risk and low risk decision making. What is the role of context in this high risk and low risk decision making? What is the role of personality itself? So we saw that it's a combination of the risk taking propensity, and it is moderated by the situational or the contextual factors such as the environment and the organization in which the manager is operating. Then we had a discussion on the type A and type B personalities, wherein we saw that the type A personalities are the ones that really that are really outcome oriented, and they are really number oriented. So they want to achieve in figures, in numbers. They emphasize more on quantity than on quality, and they want to jump to outcomes very as fast as they can. They cannot sit leisurely, and they are very aggressive in nature, and they are very achievement oriented and very task motivated, right? So we saw that this kind of individuals, they are generally better performers over the type B individuals, for whom they take their work for fun, for play, and they don't have this kind of high tasks, they don't have that kind of task orientation, and they are very calm and peaceful at their work, right? And for them, leisure time is not a big trouble, right? So we saw made a comparison between these two personality types, and we saw that it has been reported in literature that how type A individuals, because of their aggressiveness, how they can sometimes make poor decisions compared to the type B individuals. But generally the type A, they are rated better by their supervisors, by their managers, because of their task orientation, because of their goal fulfillment, their motivation to achieve the targets, and their motivation to achieve the goals, right? Then we had a discussion on the proactive personality, and we saw that what features make a person proactive, and why the proactivity or the proactive personality is increasingly important for the organizations to measure. As you could all understand that because of the very turbulent environments of today, and fast changing requirements from today's organizations, where they need to be extremely learning, and they need to be innovative to keep pace with the fast changes in the information technology, and the old technology becoming very fastly obsolete, and the product life cycles shortening. So in these times, the organizations, in order to be creative and innovative, they need the individuals who are really proactive as well, right? Because the proactivity is about the initiative taking. It is about the molding your situations and overcoming the obstacles in a way that your work is not hampered, and the progress of your work and the speed of your work is not hampered, and you are fixing the problems even before they are arising, or even if the obstacles, you can see certain obstacles, you can see certain constraints in the situations. You are actively trying to come up with the solutions and solve those conflicts, instead of the reactive people who in the first place, they wait for the problems to occur and the things to happen and the deficiencies to occur, and only then they react, and only then they react, or they even then those people, they don't take initiatives, but they want others to help them out, or they want others to solve the things for them. But the proactive individuals, they try to fix the problems even before they arise. They are on the constant lookout of for new opportunities, for new avenues to explore, and that is why these people they are more committed with their organizations and their professions. They have better chances of success in their careers. They have better social networking skills, and they are also expected to be more satisfied with their jobs and more successful in their careers, right? And these individuals, the productivity is also expected to be positively related to the innovations taking place in the organizations because of their expected innovative behaviors, right? So as a result, these people are really critical and important for the organizations for the contemporary organizations, and they must, in their selection procedures, they must include the tests that can verify the proactive personality of the individuals. Then we also had a discussion about how the self-efficacious individuals, they are really confident about their performance under various situations compared to the low self-efficacious individuals who are not that confident about how they would be performing under various situations. And we saw that self-efficacy is only a partly stable skill, which means that it is partly a personality trait and partly it can be learned as well. So it is also a skill which can be learned. And I gave you an overview of Bandura's work, where she has presented 3 to 4 determinants, or the 4 factors that can really enhance the employee's self-efficacy. So we saw that those factors, they range from how your co-workers are behaving under the same task. If they are behaving well, you also expect that you will behave well. How your supervisor is expecting that if you can perform well, you will actually tend to perform well, and so on. Then we had a discussion on the political skills, and we saw that how political skills are also, they can be context specific. They are, again, just like self-efficacy, they are the personality traits, but they are partly stable personality traits. That is, political skills can also be developed, and they can also be learned in the organizations and the management of the organization. They need to provide, or they should, or they can provide the employees with the necessary trainings that can enhance and polish their political skills, right? We saw the different consequences of political skills in terms of both commitment to the organization, commitment with their professions, better career success again, better social networks again, and better job satisfaction, right? And a range of other outcomes. So the proactive skills is, if you could, it might be coming in your mind that in terms of the outcomes, proactive skills and political skills, they have similar outcomes. That is because some of their characteristics and some of the traits of the politically skilled and proactive people, they are similar, such as they both tend to be better in their social networks. They both tend to actively exploit and see the career opportunities, the promotional context within and outside the organizations. They're actively on actively lookout. They basically understand and take the cues from their situations very actively, and they try to mold their situations, mold their circumstances in their favor. So the politically skilled individuals, they are doing that, molding their situations and the circumstances in a political way, such as through significant others, right? By building very good and astute relationships with the significant others, and then taking favors from them and molding the situations in their own in their own favor, but in a way that the significant others, they feel that these people are highly trustworthy, right? So in terms of outcomes, most of the outcomes, they are similar for these two types of people because of the characteristics of these two traits that are quite similar. They are highly correlated, these two traits, but they are not perfectly correlated, and still they are distinct constructs. They are distinct personality traits. That is why they should be measured distinctly. So this is important note here. right? And then we had a discussion on the person job fit. We saw that how the personality of the individuals, how it must be fitting with the job requirements, or with the characteristics of the job, or the job specifications of the individual, right? And we saw that we basically discussed the Holland's model to elaborate on this person job fit, and we saw that how the better fitting jobs of the individuals with their personalities, they can contribute to the more positive outcomes, and they can reduce the organizational turnover to a greater extent compared to if the individual's personality does not match with his job profile. Then those individuals are more likely to turnover, because they are less likely to be satisfied with their jobs, and they're more likely to find some other jobs which can better match themselves with their personalities or their requirements, right? Therefore the person job fit, but we saw that person organization fit is also very important. It's not only the person job fit, because the organization is providing that, because of the climate, and the signals from the climate are coming from the organization in which the individual has to perform that specific job. So he has to operate within that organization and perform the job. So the signals are coming as per the organization's culture, the norms and beliefs and do's and don'ts, and the expectations of behavior. They are all coming from the organization in which the individual is supposed to perform his job. Therefore his fit is also important, that it is also important that his personal beliefs should match with the values and beliefs of the organization, right? If his beliefs don't match with the values and beliefs of the organization, then again there is not going to be the person's fit with the organization. There might be a clash of values, clash of beliefs, clash of ethical stances, right? So that can again lead to a problematic situation, and that can again lead to higher turnovers on the part of the individual. And we can very well understand that if the his beliefs and personality is not fitting with the organization's beliefs and values, even if his personality is matching the job requirements. For example, if the person is daily initiative taking, he is daily risk taking, then he might be very well fitting in a job which requires innovative thinking and creative approach. But for this kind of individuals, the culture should also be supportive. Culture should also support risk taking, right? So if the organizational culture is such that the manager is really punishing the employees for taking risky decisions, or penalizes the system penalizes the employees for taking a risky decision, which then later also fell wrong, it would not provide very healthy signals to the individuals from the system, and it would he won't be able to exercise his personality or his risk-taking potential, and he would not be able to do his job better, because a requirement for performance of the innovative tasks is risk-taking. And whenever you take risks, there is probability that your decisions, they can go wrong as well, right? And in that kind of environments, in that kind of context, it is important that the organizational culture should be supportive of risk taking, and the managers should encourage the employees even when the decisions that they are taking, they sometimes fall wrong. They should still be encouraged, right? So that is how the culture of the organization that also needs to be supportive, and that should give the signals that are supportive of the individual's beliefs, and that are supportive of the job requirements as well, right? So that fit is also very important. Today we are going to discuss perception and individual decision making, right? We already had a discussion in one of our previous lectures on the managerial decision making. Today again we are going to talk about the managerial decision making or the individual decision making, but with respect to the role of perceptions in the decision making process, that how the individual's perceptions, they are developed, and how those perceptions based on the different perceptions of the different individuals, how the decisions of the individuals or the decisions of the managers, they can differ from each other only based on their different perceptions, right? And we'll see that how different errors and biases they can come in our perceptions and in our understandings, and how those errors and biases they can lead to defective decision making, or that can lead to bad decision making. So it's going to be a very interesting topic as well. Start with the lecture outline, what you're going to learn from this lecture, and how you should prepare. It is about we'll start off with the perception, with the concept of perception, and we'll see why it is important. Then we will develop the understand the factors that influence perception. We'll see what is attribution theory. Then we'll see what are the different errors and biases in attributions. Then we'll be discussing the frequently used shortcuts in judging others, such as the selective perception, halo effect, contrast effect, projection, stereotyping. Then we will be seeing the specific applications in organizations of these different shortcuts in judging others, such as the employment interview, the performance expectations, ethnic profiling, and performance evaluations. Then we'll be seeing the link between perceptions and individual decision making. We'll see the assumptions of rational decision making model. We'll see the 3 components of creativity. We'll also see that how decisions are actually made in organizations, and we'll see the common biases and errors again in this decision making. We'll see the concept of intuition. We'll also see the individual differences in decision making. We'll see organizational constraints on decision making, and we'll see the cultural differences in decision making, ethics and decision making, ways to improve decision making, and we'll be seeing that how these errors and biases in decision making they can be improved. So let's start our agenda from the concept of perception. Perception is a process by which individuals organize and interpret their sensory impressions in order to give meaning to their environment. Right? So this is the, you can say that this is the dictionary definition of perception. So of course perceptions are, as I told you, they're really important in the managerial decision making, because as I told you, if I give you an example, if there is a $2 loss of sale, 1 month the sales they fall by $2, right, in a month, then one sale representative, he might perceive that okay, it's nothing, we don't need to do anything about it, and other sales rep, he might perceive that he might perceive it differently, and he might try to even locate the reasons that why even there is this $2 dropout in sales. Right? So if I give you another example of our day-to-day routine, if you are, for example, caught up in a traffic jam, right? So what would be your approach? Either you would be keep staying there in that traffic jam, or if you are about to feel that you're going to get caught in that traffic, there is heavy traffic, and you feel that it is going to be jammed and you're going to be caught in it, and it can take a little time before it starts running again, right? So you can have 2 different approaches. One, you stay there, you just go there and get in the queue, and the other one is that you take your turn back and you take another route. Right? So different individuals, they can have different perceptions in this kind of scenario. When you have 2 options open to you, so different individuals, they will make different decisions in response to this, basing on their perceptions. So one individual may perceive that, oh, it's not a big deal, it will be over in another 5-7 minutes, and if I'll turn and take a longer route, that can also take almost that would also take almost equal time. And the other person may perceive it differently and take the other route. So our perceptions, they are really matter, and our decisions are heavily influenced by how we perceive different events, different situations, and different circumstances, right? So it is what we think of reality. Perception is what we think of reality, right? And there are differences in the perceptions and in the actuality is so high that in the organizations, the employees, for example, their attitudes and behaviors in the organization, they are basically developed not from the actual policies, not from the policies in the organization, but from what they perceive from the organization, from the signals they perceive from the organization, right? So it's because if you talk about the justice in the organization, different individuals can have different perceptions of the fairness used by the managers in organizational decision making or in the individual decision making, right? So one individual's perceptions might be entirely different from that of another, because and there can be a number of reasons why those perceptions can be different, but those perceptions the two individuals, they can perceive differently, and their attitudes and behaviors are largely going to be determined by those perceptions. Therefore, people's behavior is based on their perception of what reality is, not on reality itself, right? So even on the actual reality, of course you do not behave, but you behave because your mind, your body is getting the signals of what you are perceiving, how your mind is processing certain things that may actually not be the case, right? So the world as it is perceived is the world that is behaviorally important. So there are a number of factors that influence our perception. As I told you earlier, there are situational factors such as the time, the work setting, the social setting. There are factors in the perceiver such as the attitude of the perceiver, the motives that he has, the interests, the experience, expectations. If you have positive experiences, your perceptions would be according. If you have negative experiences, your perceptions would be according. And then of course, there are factors in the target as well that are influencing your perception, such as the background information that you're getting, the size, the sound, the motion, novelty, proximity, and similarity. There are a number of factors that are affecting your perception. Then person perception, it is making judgment about others, right? So this is what the attribution theory is about, that how you judge others, how you make perception about others. When individuals, they observe behavior, they attempt to determine whether it is internally or externally caused, right? So it is basically you try to attribute the behavior of the individual to certain factors, whether to the internal factors which are internal to that individual or to the factors that are external to that individual. They can be both, right? So there are with respect to this, there are three elements that we need to really understand when we are talking about this attribution theory. One is the distinctiveness, which shows different behaviors in different situations, and the other one is the consensus, which is response is the same as others to the same situation, and the other one is the consistency, which is response in the same way over time. So if I give you an example of this, it would be really easier for you to understand this, that how individuals' perceptions about others, they are built, and how they attribute the different causes to the individual's behavior to internal or external factors, right? So in the first place you observe, then you interpret your observation, and then you devise or define a cause of your attribution, right? If we try to explain this this attribution theory with the help of an example of an individual who is coming to office late, and he explains to his manager that he was late from office because he was stuck in traffic, right? So how would you tend to analyze this this explanation of that individual? How would you what would you perceive from this? You would try to attribute this explanation to internal or external factors. Either you would see that if you see that the behavior of the individual is distinct, right? Which means that that individual has performed it like this only today, right? So not he does not do it many times, right? Not every other day, like he's late because he was stuck up in traffic, and it has occurred after 5 to 6 months, right? It means that this is a distinct behavior of the individual, and you would try to relate it to the external factors, so not to the internal factors. So you would quickly tend to see the past of the individual, the past record of the individual. It would quickly come in your mind, the past record of the individual, right? If the individual, he frequently says that he was late because he was stuck up in traffic, then you would say that, okay, he is habitual of doing this, it's not a distinct behavior of that individual, and you would try to relate his reasoning with the internal factors, which means that you would tend to see or you would tend to perceive that he himself is actually responsible, but not the external environment. But if that is not the case, right, that behavior is distinct, then you would say that, okay, it would really be a traffic jam, and it was beyond the control of this individual, and you would attribute that reason to the external factors, right? So if you perceive the behavior of the individual as distinct, then it would be your attributions will be highly external, and they would be lower, they won't be internal, or they would be less internal, right? Then the second element that on the basis of which you form your perceptions is the consensus. If there are other people also whom you know that who took the same route as this individual, and if they were also late, they also got caught up in the traffic jam because they were following the same route, right? Then it means that a large number of people who use this route, they were also late. Then there is a consensus, and again it would assure you that okay, this was the this late coming is attributed to the external factors beyond the control of the individuals, and it is not because of the individual himself, or it is not, the individual factors are not responsible. And then for consistency, if the individual comes late, he is habitual of coming late, not only today but in meetings, in everywhere, in every activity he is late. So that is why he was late again, right? So if that behavior of the individual of late coming, he is just a habitual late comer, then you would tend to be high in internal attribution, right? You would attribute the cause to the internal factors as the latecomer, and the external factors, you won't hold them as much responsible. So your perception will be formed that way. So this is how the perceptions of the individuals, basing on the perceptions of the individuals, or they attribute the certain behaviors or certain reasons to the certain causes, which are either external or internal, and then you form your perception, and then you make your decision. So errors and biases and attributions. Of course, there are certain, when you're attributing, or when we are making our attributions, there are certain errors and biases that are frequently observed in these attributions. The first one is the fundamental attribution error. Herein what happens is that it is a general tendency which is to underestimate the influence of external factors and overestimate the influence of internal factors when making judgment about the behavior of others. That happens especially if I give you the example of sales. So if in a department, a sales manager, he is assessing the performance of the sales staff, and he sees that they have performed poorly on this month on account of sales, right? He would really try to he would really tend to perceive that it is those individuals or it is that sales staff that is responsible for the lower sales, because they did not put in as much effort, or they did not tap the right target market, etc. Right? He would really tend to attribute the lower sales to those sales staff, but not to the external factors, which can be there was recession during that time, or the market or the situation or the political environment was not very good, and that is why people could not make as much purchases. or a number of other external factors. But he would try, but he would be more, the manager would be more prone to committing this fundamental attribution error by perceiving the internal factors responsible for this mistake. In general, we tend to blame the person first, not the situation. Right? That is what happens actually in organizations. You would have commonly seen this. Then we see that self-serving bias. That is another error that occurs frequently in attributions. Here what we do is that the tendency for the individuals to attribute their own successes to internal factors while putting the blame for failures on external factors. So when you are calculating your own strengths or your own successes, your tendency to attribute those successes to your own strengths, that you were really good, you worked really hard, you were intelligent, that is why these results occurred. But you won't tend to attribute those success factors to the external environment, right, or to the external factors, right? So here, when a student gets an A on an exam, they often say they studied hard. But when they don't do well, how does the self-serving bias come into play? Whose fault is it usually when an exam is tough, right? So what you do is that, it's a simple example wherein, well, what we generally do is that as a student, when he has done well or the paper went well, he got very good marks, he would say that he worked really hard. And when it is bad, the paper goes bad, we usually say that paper was very tough and it's a teacher's fault to make the tough paper, right? So our successes we are attributing to our own selves, and our failures we are attributing to the external environment or the external factors. So there are a number of shortcuts that are frequently used in judging others, such as a selective perception, which is that people selectively interpret what they see on the basis of their interests, background, experience, and attitudes. So for example, if you're running on a road, you would, on a blue-colored car, you would more tend to observe the cars that are blue in color on the road compared to any other colored car. So that is the selective perception. Basing on your background information, or basing on your experience, on your interests, you will be more interested, your attitude would be more towards that blue colored car, and you would be more interested in that. It would be in your background and it would be your experience, so you would be more observing the cars that are blue in color. So or any the brand that you have, you would be seeing more cars which are of the same brand on the road. Another research on the 23 business executives that was done, and these executives belong to all the different functions in the organization, such as the staff, the sales staff, the production, auditing, human resource management, taxation, law, etc., all the different functions, operations. So what happened was that 83% of the those individuals, they were asked to rank the activities of the organization in terms of their importance. So the 83% of the sales staff, they reported the sales activities to be most important. So that is again the selective perception, because they are belonging to the similar interests, similar background, similar experience and attitudes. That is why they are rating their own department as on the highest level. Then halo effect, that often happens, and we also must have observed it ourselves as well, that we generally draw an impression about a person basing only on one characteristic of that individual, right? So if an individual is smart, we tend to build our whole impression about that individual only taking from this characteristic that he is smart. Or if somebody is intelligent, we will make our perceptions, build our perceptions on the whole individual basing on that one single characteristic. That is what happened with the former CEO of HP, who when hired was very heavily and very positively reported in the media and in the newspapers as being the smartest CEO of HP and the best you can have, or all the person can have. He has it all. But when the CEO of HP was fired, the newspapers, they started writing the opposite about the CEO. So that was again the halo effect. Then we have the because of one mistake or because of one wrong deed, when you fire someone, you start to see that everything bad about that person, right? And that is the halo effect operating. Then you have the contrast effect, which is the evaluation of a person's characteristics that are affected by comparison with other people recently encountered who rank higher or lower on the same characteristics. So here what is happening is that you're making a comparison of an individual to another individual with the similar characteristics, and if he has and what the level of the characteristics of the two individuals. So if I give you the example of the job interviews, so if an interviewee, he is coming after an interviewee who was really smart and intelligent, then you would tend to perceive the later interviewee as less smart and less intelligent, right? So but if the previous interviews that you have conducted, they were really dumb and bad, and the new individual, even if he is not very intelligent but he is better than the previous ones, then you would tend to like that individual. So that is the contrast effect. You make your comparison, and on the basis of those comparisons you make your perceptions and you judge others on the basis of that. Then the stereotyping. Here again what we are doing is that we are judging someone on the basis of one's perception of that group to which that person belongs. For example, to the particular gender, ethnicity, age, etc. that the individual is belonging. We have made these different groups in our minds, that is, which is the stereotyping, and the basis on the basis of these stereotyping we have certain judgments about these different groups. For example, about the gender, there is the stereotyping that females, they cannot sit late they cannot sit for laying late, or they cannot be promoted to the highest seats or to the highest levels because they are not that good performers, right? Or they are not that good performers, therefore they cannot get as much salary as their counterparts who are performing this who are doing the same job, right? So there are certain stereotypes about the gender, about the differences between the males and the females, right? So when a female is coming to you for a job, then you immediately have this stereotype in your mind, right? That okay, she's a female, so maybe she cannot perform that well as the male. And then, such as the Asian people, there's this stereotyping about the Asian immigrants, that they are hardworking. Then the older people, they cannot learn new skills. That is another stereotype that is widespread, and men cannot do the child care. So what are the applications in the organizations of these different ways in which we judge others? In the employment interview, perceptual biases of raters, they affect the accuracy of interviewers' judgments of applicants. Like I told you that when you are into these biases, into the stereotyping, then you of course cannot make your judgments accurately, such as women can't sit late. I gave you the example. Then the performance expectations. If you if you perceive that your boss or the supervisor, he has set higher standards for you, then this self-fulfilling prophecy or Pygmalion effect, it states that you would tend to perform better. If your supervisor has set higher performance target for you, you will work harder and you will perform better. But if the supervisor sets lower targets for you, then you will also not work that hard and you will not achieve that good, right? So this is how the different perceptions, they influence your outcomes. Then the ethnic profiling, it is again a form of stereotyping in which a group of individuals is signaled out, typically on the basis of race or ethnicity, right? Like this ethnic people belonging to this ethnicity or people belonging to this race, they cannot apply. Then the performance evaluations, again they are the appraisals, they are often done subjectively. So So in the organizations, when the appraisals or when the performance is output based or performance is objective, in the terms of the number of sales that you have done, so you'll be evaluated accordingly. But if the performance is subjective, then this kind of biases, they can really prevail the managerial thinking or managerial decision making, such as the stereotyping, the halo effect, and the selection biases. They can really operate when the performance evaluations are subjective. So what is the link between perceptions and individual decision making? Of course, there is a there is a problem, which is the perceived discrepancy between the current state and the desired state, and then the decisions which you have to make, they are from among alternatives that are developed from data which is perceived as relevant, right? So there is a certain problem, and in response to certain problem, you make your decisions basing on your perceptions. As I told you earlier, in the case of a traffic jam, and that two people who are expecting that they'll be caught in this traffic jam, how their decisions, they can differ in response to that problem, and how their decisions, they can be different basing on their perceptions. The outcomes can be different. So rational decision making model, I will just quickly go through these couple of slides, because we have already discussed part of these in our managerial decision making in one of our earlier lectures. So rational decision making, as I told you earlier, describes how individuals, they should behave in order to maximize some outcome. And we had a number of assumptions of this model that we discussed earlier in detail, and we also had discussed a number of steps that are that need to be taken in the rational decision making, such as the defining the problem, then identifying the decision criteria, allocating weights to those criteria, developing the alternatives, and then evaluating those alternatives basing on those criteria, and then you select the best alternative. And then we also saw that actually the decisions, they are made, they are not rational decisions, or they are not for the maximizing of the output, but the managers need to satisfy, right? Because they have to choose among the alternatives available, among the they have the limited information in reality, and they have limited amount of time, they have certain other constraints, and basing on that, they cannot make the decisions based on all the alternatives possible, but they have to choose amongst a few alternatives, and among the limited number of information available. Therefore there is some the decision making is not rational, but there is some bounding to our rationality, and that is why the decisions are managers, they satisfies the decision making. Then we see that how the creativity, the component of creativity, what are the determinants of this creativity component when it comes to the to all this idea building and the decision making. As you all understand that it's creativity, it is basically the ability to produce novel and useful ideas. And there are three components of creativity, or the three determinants of creativity, we can also say. One is the expertise, that the degree to which you are really expert in doing a task. If you're doing a task the first time, of course you cannot be creative. But if you have done a task many times, then you can come up with the novel and new ideas and smarter ideas of doing that task. You can make certain improvements to that. So expertise is important. Then the creativity skills, of course you need to have those learning skills, you need to have certain knowledge, only then you can be creative. So you need to have the creative learning skills to be creative. Then you need to have the task motivation, right? If you are not motivated to do something or certain task, you cannot be creative, right? Or if you are really forced to do a task, you don't have any motivation to do that task, again you won't be creative. So you need to have certain intrinsic motivation to perform a certain task. You should be only then you can be creative. Okay, so what are the common biases and errors, again, that are in the decision making process? One is the overconfidence bias. That occurs often, that occurs too much. When here what is happening is that you're very much confident of your own self, of your own ability to make good decisions. But this overconfidence bias that can actually lead to bad decisions in practicality. So there were a few studies in relation to this overconfidence bias which are really interesting. One was carried out in US, in which 83 of the participants reported that they would be so not 83, sorry, 90% of the participants, they reported that they would be going to heaven, while 86% only, it was 90% who perceived that they will be going to heaven, while 86%, that is lesser than the earlier figure, they perceive that Mother Teresa will go to is in heaven, right? So people, they tend to perceive themselves as good compared to others, right? So for Mother Teresa, lesser people thought that they are in heaven, but for themselves, they much more people thought that they would be in heaven. Research indicates that normally, if you are 100% sure that you are right, you are correct, or you have made the right decision, but actually the probability of that decision in that case would be 75 to 80%. That there would be 75 to 80% chances that you are right or correct when you perceive, or when you believe, or when you judge that you are 100% correct, right? So this is how we are overconfident about ourselves, and this is how this overconfidence that can lead us to make bad decisions. Then the anchoring bias. Again, I explained it to you, this phenomenon earlier as well, wherein what is happening is that you are using first received information as the basis for making subsequent judgments. I already gave you an example of a job interview in which an employee goes, the candidate goes to the employer and he asks him about his salary from his previous job, and whatever he tells is set as an anchor for further negotiations on the job. Then the confirmation bias, that is also a very prevalent error that occurs while decision making. We are processing, we are using only those facts from the external environment, or we are choosing only that information, or we extract only that information which is supporting our own views, and which is supporting our own previous ideas or pre-established beliefs, arguments and approaches. We are basically tend to process that information from only that part of the information from the external environment, which is in line with what we already believe or what our approach already is. Availability bias is another common bias. Herein what happens is that you are using the information that is most readily at hand, which is most vivid, which is most recent information. You tend to make your decisions basing on that information. You tend to somehow that gets more weightage, the information that is recent and vivid. I explained this concept to you earlier as well, in which I explained to you that how the security locks, their demand has increased in the US, despite that the security situation has improved, but still because of the advertisements of the security locks companies, their sales has tremendously increased because of the information, the advertisements that are given by the company and the people seeing those advertisements, and because of the availability bias that is created. Winner's curse is a situation in which you tend to pay much more, such as in the case of the biddings, the higher bidder, or the bidder who wins the bid, he pays actually much more, and the likelihood of winner's curse, it increases with the number of people overbidding in auction. If there are a lot of people who are overbidding in the auction, then the highest bidder is expected to pay much high, right? And if there are most of the people, they are low bidders, then who has won the bid, chances are that he won't have paid that high. So that is the winner's curse. Escalation of commitment is an other error that occurs in our decision making. So here what happens is that in spite of new negative information, commitment actually increases. So when the managers, they have commonly taken a decision, and they see that in the after some time they see that that decision was not very correct, or the outcomes are not in the desired direction, they tend to keep supporting their decision in order to defend their earlier decision, right? So in order to defend their earlier decision, they keep supporting that decision, and they keep investing their resources in the same direction or in the same activity, even when it is not producing the desired results. So they keep on committing to the same activity, and they can be, one reason, as I told you, that is because they want to defend their earlier decision, and secondly, sometimes they have this in mind that they have invested already so much in this activity that they should spend some more and try to see the results, let them improve. Then the randomness error is creating meaning out of random events, such as the our superstitious beliefs, such as we have certain beliefs that okay, Friday is not a good day to come out, or on Tuesday you should not do this and that, and this kind of beliefs, the superstitious beliefs that we have, which are based on our random experiences, they can lead us to the erroneous decision making. Then the hindsight bias is when you are looking back once the outcome has occurred and believing that you could accurately predict the outcome of that event even before it occurred, right? So when this is very common with us, when some event has taken place, we feel that okay, it was bound to happen, or it was expected that it would. We feel like it was expected that it will happen, or it was expected that it will happen like this. We have this strong feeling. This is the hindsight bias. We tend to feel that its occurrence was highest when it has actually occurred. After it has occurred, we tend to feel that it was quite logical that it would have happened. So again, this kind of hindsight bias, it limits our rational decision making, because then we cannot actually interpret the history or the past, and we cannot learn from the past the way we should as a result of the hindsight bias, and the future decision making might also be again hampered due to this hindsight bias. Intuition, as we all know, that managers, they often make decisions on the basis of intuition as well, and there is nothing entirely wrong about it. Actually, the decisions, they should be both calculated, analytical, and they should also be supported by the intuitions, right? And although these decisions which are made purely on the basis of intuition, they're sometimes wrong, but for some managers, the intuitive decisions, they turn out to be right as well. So under what conditions you tend to take intuitive decisions? When there is high level of uncertainty, when there is little precedent to draw on, when variables are less scientifically predictable, when the facts are limited, facts don't clearly point the way, analytical data are of little use, several plausible alternative solutions exist, and time is limited and pressing for the right direction. So this is what generally happens. You take intuitive decisions in the situations where there is a lot of uncertainty, and your facts are limited, information available to you is limited, and a good number of plausible options, alternatives are available. You are short of time, and you make the decision basing on your intuition. So the personality, again, it plays a role in the decision-making process, or the differences, they can be attributed to your personality and to your gender, such as the conscientiousness we studied as a part of a Big 5 personality model, and we saw that there are two aspects of conscientiousness. Mainly, one is the achievement striving, and the other one is the dutifulness. The achievement striving individuals, since they really want to achieve, they are really outcome and goal oriented, and they want to achieve something, we can expect that their relationship is positive with the escalation to commitment, because though they really want to achieve something in the end, therefore they will keep on going, they will be keep on committing with the same task or the activity, and investing their effort and resources in order to make that project successful or that activity successful. But on the other hand, the beautiful aspect of the individuals, that since they are more they feel more responsible, more accountable towards the organization, therefore they would tend to be lesser on this escalation of commitment, right? So if that project is not doing well, they would more tend to quit with that project, because they would feel a higher sense of responsibility with the organization. The individuals that are high on self-esteem, they're reported to be positively related to self-serving bias, because you know that self-esteem is the degree to which you like yourself, right? And the more you like yourself, the more you will be entered into the self-serving bias, in which you will be attributing the successes to your own inner selves. Then the rumination, when you tend to really take a lot of time and you really tend to analyze the decisions. And we know that women, they are often ruminating much more than the men. They are very analytical and they're very slow decision makers, and the men are fast decision makers because they ruminate less. There are certain constraints that are placed by the organization on the decision makers, such as during performance evaluations, in the reward systems, the decision makers, they make action choices that are favored by the organization. Then there are certain formal regulations as well, formal rules and policies that put a limit on our alternative choices to the decision making. Then there are systems that are imposed, such as the time constraints. Organizations, they require certain decisions within specific deadlines which limit our rational decision making capabilities, and there are certain historical precedents as well that put a constraint on us for the rational decision making, such as the past influences or the past decisions that are influencing our current decisions. There are certain cultural differences as well in the decision making. We have studied this culture with respect to a number of areas in a number of discussions. So I will here just read this out for you, and I would ask you, I would require from you to do some brainstorming and see that how culture is affecting this decision making, such as the problems that are selected, how with respect to the different cultures, here the difference can arise with respect to time orientation, importance of logic and rationality, belief in the ability of people to solve problems, preference for collective decisions, right? And how the culture is going to differ when you are, for example, in the collectivist cultures, in the individualistic cultures, how your beliefs, how your ability to solve problems can vary, and how the importance of logic and rationality can vary vis-a-vis the different cultures, and how your preferences for the decision making, they can vary with respect to the different cultures, right? Ethical decision making, we discussed this in detail as well. So utilitarianism is one of the approaches to the decision making, wherein what happens is that you seek the greatest good for the greatest number. When you have to make your decision, you try to take that decision which is good for the highest people or highest number of people. Then the rights, which is the respecting and protecting basic rights of individuals, such as whistleblowers, right? And we also discussed the concept of the whistleblowers, which are the people who basically are blowing the whistle on what is wrong, or what rules and regulations are not being followed by the organizations, what are the violations, they report those violations. So their rights, they should be protected, and justice, of course, that should be used in the decision making process. So of course there are no global ethical standards, even there are no ethical standards which can be compared from industry to industry or from organization to organization. Every organization has its own sets its own code of conduct and ethical standards. The ethical principles of global organizations that reflect and respect local cultural norms are necessary for higher standards. So there are a number of ways to improve the decision making, such as analyze the situation and adjust your decision making style to fit the situation, be aware of biases and try to limit their impact, We studied here a number of biases that can really make our decision making faulty and erroneous. We need to overcome those biases while making our decisions. We combine rational analysis with intuition to increase decision making effectiveness. So it should not be only intuitive decisions, it should not be only rational decisions, but it should be a combination of both. Don't assume that your specific decision style is appropriate to every situation, right? And then enhance personal creativity by looking for novel solutions or seeing problems in new ways and using analogies. Focus on goals. Clear goals make decision making easier and help to eliminate options inconsistent with your interests. Look for information that disconfirms beliefs. Overtly considering ways we could be wrong challenges our tendencies to think we are smarter than we actually are. Right? So as we did earlier, the confirmation bias, right, wherein we tend to process only the information that is relevant to us, or that is in line with our ideas and beliefs. So we should try to overcome that. Don't try to create meaning out of random events. So this is the randomness error, right, wherein we tend to be superstitious, and out of the random events we tend to create meanings, and then we tend to base our decisions on those. Increase your options. The number and diversity of alternatives generated increases the chances of finding an outstanding solution. So of course, the more alternatives you have, the higher probability it is that you will be able to make a better decision. Okay, chapter checklist. A few ideas for you to ponder. It's your little sister's senior prom night, and she notices that everyone is wearing the same dress she has on. Which perceptual shortcut may be occurring? Escalation of commitment, representative bias, availability bias, and hindsight bias. After listening to today's lecture, and you should be able to explain that which bias it is. Then if all of these perceptual shortcuts happen unconsciously, how can we keep the stereotypes we have from interfering with the way we work in group projects? Identify 2 specific things you could do to help prevent stereotypes from inhibiting effective group relationships, and discuss with a neighbor. So I have another question for you here, and try to bring your own answers. With this we come to an end of today's lecture. I hope you had a good time listening. Thank you for your patient hearing. Allah Hafiz.